Hi everybody, welcome to Sunya and welcome to the topic 3 worksheet discussion. Okay, in this one we'll be seeing some important questions and concepts from our environment prelims crash course. Those of you who are wanting to join this crash course may do so at the earliest. In this we'll be quickly covering very comprehensively the static and the current affairs of environment and ecology. Okay, now, if you really want to attempt these questions, first of all, you should go through the specific lectures. You should cover coral reefs, mangroves, and the basics of biodiversity, which was the lecture 3. Okay. The other things, coral reefs and mangroves, were covered in lecture 2.2. So you should cover them and then only attempt the test. Additionally, you may want to refer chapter number 4, that is aquatic systems, for this particular day 3 worksheet discussion. Okay. And in case I've already told you, if you get these questions wrong, you may please revisit the concepts in the lecture that will be helping you. Okay. And then anything which extra which you find in these discussions, you may again add it to your notes, right? That will be very helpful. So let us start. The first question is about a concept known as red tides. You have been given three statements. So one, these are types of algal blooms, so that are always red in color. Okay, you have to tell this one. Then formed between low tides and high tides. And the third is they can form due to nutrient enrichment. Now we know what is nutrient enrichment, which that is nothing but eutrophication. Okay. So yes, third statement definitely is correct, that because of eutrophication, the algal blooms can occur. Okay, we have also read about this particular concept, that you have, let's say this is a lake, and on that you have a green kind of a coating, etc., which is due to the growth of algae. Okay, so that is known as algal bloom because of nutrient enrichment. Now, this algal bloom may be safe and it can also be harmful. When is it harmful? When it releases some toxins, okay, and these toxins lead to the death of phytoplanktons. So in this case, then it is known as HABs, okay. And in cases when the toxins are specifically red in color, it would be known as red tides, okay. So however, red tides doesn't always have to necessarily be red. It can be of different colors, okay. It can be basically greenish brown and even reddish orange. I'll just show you the image here. This is how a red tide looks like. So this is wrong. And also one thing, please know, red tide is basically a misnomer, okay, which basically means they are not always red, and second, they don't have anything to do with specifically with the tides. So they're like, the statement two tries to confuse you, saying that these are formed between low and high tide zones. No, that is not correct, okay. So this is wrong. This is how a red tide looks like. So herein it is asking you which of the following is correct. The answer will be B, 3 only. Additionally, if you think what could be the reason for this, nutrient enrichment in the body, okay. So of course, this can be because of excess of, phosphates, excess nitrogen which comes in, okay, that leads to pollution, etc., and that can cause algal blooms. Also, if the water temperature, etc., is getting warmer, okay, so again that will be leading to the blooms. So I hope you understand the concept of red tides here, right? Let's go to the next question. Now we have to talk about coral reefs. Okay, now in coral reefs, what is the first of all what the statement telling you? One is basically that there are more number of cold water corals, okay, than the total number of reefs in tropical. That is question number one. Then the second is coral reefs are slow growing colonies of animals, while zooxanthellae are fast growing plants. Okay. Third is in India, the coral reefs are found in Gulf of Mannar and Lakshadweep Islands only. Okay. So here in see, first of all, we need to know that coral is a symbiotic association. This is how a coral reef would look like. Okay. A coral reef basically is a symbiotic association of a coral and a zooxanthellae. Okay, what is a zooxanthellae basically? It is an algae which prepares food and provides nutrition for the hard exoskeleton, which is basically a coral. So first of all, that is something you need to know. Okay, Then the second thing is, it is saying that the corals are slow growing colonies of animals while zooxanthellae, okay? So this is actually correct. These are fast growing plants. Now this is absolutely correct. Now in India, it is saying that coral reefs. So first of all, in India, you will find coral reefs not only in Gulf of Mannar and Lakshadweep, but also you can find them in Gulf of Kutch, and you can also find them in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So, of course, statement number three would be wrong. If you eliminate statement number three, directly you can get your answer. Okay. And in case UNEP also reports that there are more cold water coral reefs worldwide than the tropical reefs. Okay. So, first is a factual statement, but even if you did not know this, even if you go by statement number two and three, that would, you will get your answer correct. Is it right? Okay. Now, very important, mangrove ecosystems. Before I tell you what the question, see, mangroves are salt tolerant plants. They are also known as halophytes. Okay, now let's see. These are highly adapted to saline trees and waterlogged anaerobic mud. Anaerobic means lack or less oxygen. Okay, so this is correct. These are highly adapted systems to these particular saline conditions. Then they have the ability to absorb fresh water from saline water. Yes, these abilities are present in the mangroves. And the third statement says that they exhibit viviparity, mode of reproduction, right? And they also explain that in which the seed germinate in the tree itself. Now this is also correct. Here it is asking you what is incorrect. In fact, all the three statements are correct. So none is incorrect. So, but I'll just quickly explain you few terms here. This is how your mangroves look like. Okay. So these are inundated by water and a lot of salts, etc. are present. Okay. So because of this, let's see, these are the roots. These roots have some aerial projections which are known as pneumatophores. Okay, pneumatophores, which can be known as aerial breathing roots. Okay, so that is also very helpful. Number one, pneumatophores is helpful. Second thing, which also you need to know, these are halophytes. And third thing is viviparity. Now, why? See, let's say if there's a seed here, if the seed falls on the ground, it's actually waterlogged. So it might not be able to germinate and it might die off. So to prevent this, it is, germinating in the tree itself. So these are some of the modifications which help the corals to actually not the corals, but the mangroves to properly survive. Okay. So these are mangrove specific adaptations. All right. So again here the answer, all the three were correct. So it is none of the above. Now going for statement number four, question number four. Again we are asked about eutrophication. Now I think everybody would know what is this. Basically this is nutrient enrichment. So let's say it happens when the nutrient in the lakes reduces. No, it actually increases. So of course first statement will be wrong here. Okay. Then it is primarily caused by leaching of phosphates and nitrate containing fertilizers. Yes, this is something we know, that when these nitrates and phosphates, etc., they are abundant and their quantity increases, yes, this leads to eutrophication, which is nutrient enrichment. Okay. Then you have eutrophication leads to increase. No, it is leading to decrease in biodiversity. How? Let's say this is the region. Because of increased nutrients, what will happen? A lot of decomposition, etc. activities will happen. Because of this, the dissolved oxygen levels will decline. Now when these levels are going to decline, what is going to happen here? That the organisms will not have enough of oxygen. The region will become hypoxic, which basically means lack of oxygen, and because of lack of oxygen they will ultimately die, leading to decline in biodiversity. Okay, so this is wrong. It is asking which is correct. So for 4, it needs to be 2 only. All right. Right. This is what is the process of eutrophication. You have fertilizer runoff which is happening, nitrogen and phosphorus. This was basically asked by the question. And then algae will happen. And bacteria, they use the oxygen to break down the algae. And because of this, there is lack of oxygen. Okay, ultimately fishes and the other biodiversity will die. All right, fine. Now this is again a good question on the kind of adaptations we have. You have pnematophores. halophytes, viviparity, and rhizophora. So, see, in the exam, if you have these kind of match the following, first of all, try to match one which you already know. Okay, you don't have to be very, fearful of these questions. So, halophytes, I told you, halophytes are salt tolerant. In this case, the options are in such that in a way, if you only know halophytes are salt tolerant for 2C, you directly get your answer. But let us see other parts as well. So pneumatophores, we have already discussed what are pneumatophores. These are blind roots for respiration in an anaerobic soil. Okay. So 1D, viviparity, the seeds they germinate in the tree itself before falling. Okay, so 3, again the answer is A. And rhizophora is the standing or the stand arching prop roots which are down in the water. They at least help you in the structural stability, right? So most of these terms are known to you, and in fact the adaptations of mangroves is very important. All these terms should be crystal clear in your mind. So the answer for 5 is C. Okay. Now, some aspects of biodiversity, there are terms known as flagship species, foundation species, keystone species. Okay, so let us see. We'll start with statement one. A species whose loss from an ecosystem leads to major changes in the abundance of at least one other species. So this will not be flagship. This is actually keystone species. Keystone species are very important. They play a very important role. For example, tigers, sea otters, etc. So if you remove the keystone species, it has a disproportionate impact on the ecosystem. Okay, so statement one would be wrong. Then foundation species is the dominant primary producer, both in terms of abundance and influence. This is correct. So let's say if I'm talking of an ecosystem which is just coming up, so the foundation species will be doing the primary production part. So if you're talking of autotrophs or if you're talking of plants, so they will produce food, they will be abundant there. So those are foundation species, that is correct. Now then, the next question is lichens are keystone species? No, lichens are actually indicator species. What is indicator species? In fact, indicator species are also known as sentinel species. Right. So lichens, first of all, what you need to know? Symbiotic. Then additionally, it is a symbiotic association of what? Of algae and fungi. Okay, that you need to know. Second, why is it indicator species? Because see, if there is any change in the pollution levels, etc. of air, this is going to, like for example, they are going to die. So that is going to indicate the health of an ecosystem. So again, statement 3 becomes wrong. And then keystone species are exclusively native to the particular region. No, this in fact is the definition for endemic species. Okay, can you give me any example of endemic species? So let's say if I talk about Asiatic lions. So if Asiatic lions you will find in which part of India? In Gujarat, you can find them in Gir National Park. Okay, so they will be endemic. Similarly, you have dancing deer, which is also known as Sangai deer, which is found in the Loktak Lake of Manipur. Again, that is going to be an endemic species. So statement 4 is also wrong. So you have to tell me which of the following is incorrect. So of course, statement 1, 3, 4, all 1, 2, 1, 3, 4 are incorrect. All right. Now, three statements again with the concept of basic biodiversity. A more diverse ecosystem will always be more stable. True, because a more diverse ecosystem will have more genetic diversity, it will have more species diversity, and overall it will be having more of ecosystem diversity. Because of this, there will be multiple species which are going to be present and they will be able to withstand the changes in temperature, etc. Right? So yes, this will be more stable. Now if you think the opposite, if the system is not at all diverse, let's say it has very few species and very less varieties, what will happen in that case? It will not be stable at all. Any changes which are happening outside, it is going to be threatened by it. So one is absolutely correct. Then more number of ecotones lead to greater number of transition zones. We've already seen the concept of an ecotone, right? This is ecosystem number one, ecosystem number two. Ecotone is the transitional zone which is there, right? So more number of ecotones definitely means greater number of transition zones. Yes, that is also correct. then less evenness among species lead to greater diversity. So see, there are two terms. One is species richness and second is evenness. Evenness talks about the proportion of the species and richness talks about roughly the varieties of the species which you are finding in the region. And by variety, let's say you have one tiger, you also have some giraffe, you have some lions, you have some snakes, etc. So the higher the variety, the higher is the richness. In richness, we do not talk about the number of each species. Okay. In evenness, I will talk about how is the proportion related to. Let's say tigers are 10. This is also 10. This is 10. This is 10. So this means there is more evenness in this system as opposed to, let's say, if there was one tiger, 100 giraffe, one lion and 400 snakes. This is very unevenly distributed. Okay. So of course, if you have less evenness among species, okay, that means it leads to greater diversity in the ecosystem, right? So it is asking you which of the following is incorrect. Here all the statements are correct, so the answer will be none of the above. All right. Then we're talking of different modes of conservation here. Okay, again, very important topic. So first of all, you need to know what is in situ and you also need to know what is ex situ, right? In situ, the conservation which is happening inside the region, okay? And in that whole ecosystem, like it within the region, it has to happen. That is known as in situ. Ex situ is placed outside. Examples of in situ will be national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. Ex situ will be zoological parks, botanical gardens, gene banks, seed banks, etc. Right. Now let us see. XC2 is offsite conservation where animals are reared, but plants are not cultivated. No, actually, both the animals and plants can be reared. In case of XC2, there is no particular limitation here. Okay, so XC2 offsite, this is correct, but this part, plants are not cultivated, etc. That way makes it wrong. So read the entire statement. Okay. Second, mobility of all species is maintained in ex situ, whereas the mobility is restricted in situ. Okay. So again, wrong. They've actually swapped the statements. Mobility of all species is actually maintained in situ and the mobility is restricted. Of course, you are moving it outside any offsite region. Okay, so if you're moving it to a different place, you would want to restrict and control the movement of the species. Okay, so again, this is wrong. Third, ex situ is more suited for species that are abundant. No, it is actually in situ is more suited for abundant species. Ex situ, you already know that the population of that species is declining. Okay, and it is, you know, going towards extinction, so you want to save that. Okay, so in this case it is asking you which is correct. Again, by the way, this third also is wrong. Which of the following is correct? None is correct. All the three statements here are incorrect. All right, moving on to the next statement. Now you have to again tell terms related to measurement of biodiversity. One term is species richness. I've told you it talks about the number of species or the variety of species which is found. And then there is species evenness. Evenness talks about proportion. Now read this statement very carefully. So they have, what they've done, they've basically swapped both the statements. Species richness should have been the number of species found in an ecosystem, and species evenness should be the proportion of the species, right? So this makes this statement wrong. Then gamma diversity, before I tell you, there are three types of diversity within ecosystem. One is alpha, one is beta, one is gamma. Alpha is within ecosystems. Okay, it is within an ecosystem, a small region. Beta is between two ecosystems. And gamma is across multiple ecosystems, which can be, of course, more than two. So, of course, when I talk of geographically, alpha is small, beta is bigger, and gamma is the biggest in terms of the area. Okay. Now let's read the statement 3 very carefully. Gamma diversity refers to diversity within a particular ecosystem or an area. No, they are basically defining alpha. This should have been alpha diversity. For gamma, it has to be across multiple ecosystems. Fine. Again, they are asking you which of the following is incorrect. So here both the statements are incorrect. All right. And now let's go to the last question. I have discussed this particular report in a very detail when we discussed this particular topic. So Living Planet report of 2022 is important because it has a lot of good findings. Okay. So for those of you who are not able to recall the findings, please go back and watch the lecture again. So this report is published by, and by the way, these kind of important reports are also included in the exam. So please make a note of it. So the answer here is World Wildlife Fund for Nature, WWF, has published this particular report. All right. So this is the Living Planet report published by WWF. It talks about the decrease or decline in the wildlife population by 69% in the last 50 years. So that's a huge decline, and it also links climate change and biodiversity loss. Okay. Other things we've already discussed. Please go back and revise the lecture. Right. So with that, we come to an end of our discussion, right? We started our discussion with red tides. We then understood what are coral reefs, then mangrove ecosystems, eutrophication, important modifications, then types of species. Then we saw different concepts like ecotone, diversity. Then we saw in situ, ex situ, right? Species richness, species evenness, gamma diversity. And lastly, we now end with a very important report from the current affairs perspective, that is Living Planet report, right? So I hope you have made good use of this section, and those of you who are interested to join can also join the Environment Prelims crash course and the overall comprehensive Prelims 2023 crash course at a very affordable rate. So please get registered at the very earliest. You may choose to join online and offline as what is useful for you, right? So I'll be watching you, I'll be like getting back to you in the next lecture. Thank you.